Your wait is over. The Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast is about to start. It's the Medicare podcast that sometimes actually talks about Medicare. And here he is, the man with no fear of bovine flatulence, Medicare expert Doug Jones.
Thank you, Drew McMillan. That's an ace Canadian broadcaster right there, folks. If you can hear that voice in Canada, you would hear it in his typical environment. But he's down here in the States, still getting his feet wet in a new, huge market of listeners. At least we hope it's a huge market by the time you hear this podcast episode. This is Doug Jones, as he said, Medicare expert. And you are listening to episode number 6 of Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. We couldn't be happier to be here bringing you Medicare information. And we're not just bringing it to the lazy man. And you might have a question as to who the lazy man is that we're talking about. The lazy man, when it comes to Medicare, is any man or woman who does not want to spend time studying and learning about Medicare. They'd rather do almost anything else. They'd rather just be told what the best choices for them are. Well, that's why I'm here. I'm broadcasting to people who really don't want to study Medicare. It's a boring subject. It's almost intimidating. And so I'm here to try to make it easier, less intimidating, and perhaps a little bit more fun. I brought with me my constant sidekick, Randy Carson. Say hello, Randy.
Hey, Doug. How you doing this morning? I just wanted to ask, you recently came out of the frozen East. How's it feeling to be back home in Arizona?
It's, I'm going to need a stick of dynamite to get the smile off my face. Have you got a match I can borrow?
I'll gladly bring you one.
My face hurts from smiling so much, and that smiling started as the plane was dropping altitude, heading from New Mexico into Arizona, closer to the Phoenix airport. I realized my mouth is wide open and my teeth are sticking out. I look like, I look pretty silly. I turned to the lady sitting next to me and she said, "Yep, you look pretty silly, all right." But I was happy and nobody could take that away from me. I'm so glad to be back here in Arizona.
Well, we are glad to have you back. And one of the things that I'm always, happy to see you is that when you get back into Arizona, you look so much happier. And, compared to how you are out east, it's like two different people.
Well, that must be why my wife is not real pleased with my behavior or comportment when I'm in Illinois. It may be unconscious lack of cooperation, lack of friendliness. I don't know, but she seems to be happy that we're back here too. So I'm going to take that for what it's worth. I'm not going to argue about it. Frankly, if this is where I'm supposed to be, then I will enjoy it.
So what have you got on the agenda today, Doug, to share with our listeners about Medicare and Medicare supplements and all around that topic?
Well, way back in episode 5, which was, as I recall, we recorded that yesterday, I mentioned that I had a list of items relating to Medicare that I wanted to touch on as our episode recording went forward. So I read off that list, and I don't know, for some reason, a list of about 8 items took us, 20 minutes or so. But one of those items I think is crucial. There aren't many crucial items when it comes to Medicare. There aren't many crucial decisions that are important for Medicare people to make, but Medicare participants. But one of those is the timing of when to start your Medicare coverages. Another is what sort of plan to get to supplement Medicare. In the case of Medicare, the government provides insurance for a pretty reasonable cost, but they don't pay for everything. That insurance coverage leaves gaps and holes, and it's a risk for a person not to purchase additional insurance to protect themselves against the possibility that a need for medical treatment is going to cost them a bunch of money out of pocket. As I said, it's been calculated that if a person had the worst possible luck in a given 12-month period and had repeated hospitalizations with exactly the right timing, had a ton of outpatient treatment, it's remotely possible that even being covered by Medicare, they could be exposed to up to $900,000 in a year of costs that they would have to pay out of their own pockets. So it's prudent to buy insurance to protect yourselves against that kind of a risk. And there are two different kinds of plans, and I have very specific opinions as to which of those two plans is the best for your average Medicare participant to buy. Now, one plan is called a Medicare Supplement. It's very simple. You have Medicare, and this is a plan that one would buy for a monthly premium that supplements Medicare. It fills those gaps and holes and protects you against the risk of losing money if you need medical treatment. The purchase price can be anywhere between $40 and let's say $250 if you live in one of the high price states. But the coverage is your own. You buy it from the company that you choose. It will protect you against the possibility of financial disaster. The other kind, and you hear the most about this, is Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage is what they're talking about at the end of every year from October to December, because there is an open enrollment that occurs at the end of the year, and all the companies that sell Medicare Advantage plans are pounding the streets and beating people over the head and trying to get them interested in buying a new plan to replace the one they have that they're probably not satisfied anymore with. So Medicare Advantage is one type, Medicare Supplement is the other type. Now, I hear Randy smacking his lips in there. Was that because you're eating a cookie, or did a question arise?
Well, I have a question, rising up in my mind here. One of the things that has always been a bit of a confusion for me, especially in the Medicare supplement arena, is Medicare supplements are offered by individual insurance companies. To me, is somewhat confusing in that you go to one state, they're offered by one company. You go to another state, they're offered by another company, perhaps more than one company. And in the particular case of Arizona, there's probably how many insurance companies offering supplements?
I've never counted, but I would venture to guess it's somewhere between 20 and 40.
So in the case of choosing a supplement, what factor do you put against the company that's offering it? How do you factor that in? How do you make a choice versus, making a bad choice?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and it really applies to both supplements and Medicare Advantage. You want to look first at the company that's offering it. Is it a financially stable company? Is it a company that you've heard of? And even if you haven't heard of them, that's not necessarily bad. You just might not have studied companies in the insurance industry because you've had no reason to up until now. But there are companies that are low profile. They don't advertise a lot, but they do right by their customers. In other words, they don't lowball a new applicant and then raise the rates after they're on board. They don't try to squeeze them for nickels and dimes after they've become a customer. And so they also strive to maintain stable rates and an attractive rate posture with respect to their competitors. So there are some things that make different companies more advantageous to have. There are a lot of no-name companies out there that I'd be afraid to take a risk with, but there are some no-name companies that once you study them, you find out, hey, they've been around for a while. They're very solid. They're well-funded. It's not always that you've seen the ads. That's one way to judge them. Now, the other thing is, which Medicare supplement plan would you take once you've decided on one or two companies? Because one plan from a certain company can be priced very high compared to the same plan from a different company. So a little comparison shopping always helps. Once you're on board, though, as long as you're healthy, you can apply to a different company, prove that you're in good health, and change to a different company or change to a different plan within that company. But if you have a dread disease occur, then your options become very limited. So it's best to choose carefully at the outset. Choose a good company, choose a plan that you feel comfortable with. Expect to have that forever. If you are able to change down the road, that's fine if you want to, but if you choose carefully at the very outset, a disease happens or an illness or injury that will remove the option of satisfying health underwriters, then at least you'll have decided that you have a good plan and a good company from the get-go.
If you are, let's say you're looking at company A, does company A have to offer the same Medicare supplement plans that company B does? So for example, if I'm looking at company A and they offer a great high deductible plan of some sort, will company C also offer that same plan? Maybe not for the same price, but I guess my question is does each insurance company have to offer the full range of Medicare supplement plans?
Nope. That's the answer. Is a
Nope.
I never answered a question so quickly in my life. The diarrhea of the mouth stops here.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
The whole thing is all companies that want to offer Medicare supplements have to offer Plan A, which nobody really wants. So having said that, the companies then look at the plans that sell best in a certain marketplace. And frankly, they're going to go with the ones they think they can sell a ton of product on, so that they can have the best possibility of success. But they don't have to. There's a beautiful new plan, new for 2020. It's never been sold before, called High Deductible Plan G. And I want to spend a whole episode talking about high deductible, because high deductible, in my view, is the way to go for most people. But the companies selling High Deductible Plan G are few and far between. I have talked to some readers of my book, Medicare for the Lazy Man 2020, on sale at Amazon in audio, Kindle, and paperback versions, also on sale at Barnes & Noble. My book stresses the fact that high deductible is something that should be considered by every normal, healthy person. You'll have a tough time finding it out in the marketplace. A lot of Googling to find the few companies that are selling that plan, but it's a beautiful plan and it's really, really cost effective. So there's an example right there. These companies don't realize that they've got dynamite right in their portfolio if they only care to exercise it.
Those, again, I've worked with you for a number of years now. And I still, when you start talking about those types of details around, how to make your way around the insurance world, my eyes start glazing over.
Maybe you should get yourself a new anti-insurance insurance man. Is it possible that I'm just not very effective?
Oh, no. Just exactly the opposite. I think it's me. My brain just won't accept insurance information.
Well, if your eyeballs are rolling around your head, imagine the audience right now. They're going, Jesus, I can't reach the on-off knob quickly enough. But the whole thing is we're trying to spoon feed people in an entertaining and hopefully painless way some really important information. It's the whole point that we're doing this for, is to help people understand that it doesn't have to be complicated, scary, and expensive.
Oh, I was going to ask, Doug, how about the mailbag? Do we have anything in the mailbag this morning?
By golly, I did have one thing in the mailbag. This letter arrived a couple of days ago from a Mr. Len. I'm going to use Len, last initial D, because he does not specifically give me permission to use his name. I'm hoping that people who ask questions of us in the future will let us know that it's okay to use their names on the podcast. What you want to do is send an email to dbj@medicareforthelazyman.com. All one word, no caps. dbj@medicareforthelazyman.com. I'm going to ask Randy if it's possible to get an email address that's dbj@MLM, and that would be even easier for people to send in their questions. But Len writes, or Mr. D, he writes, I had it on the wrong side. I was reading my answer, my golden words of wisdom. I better start with his question. I am fast approaching age 66 on May 20th. I guess he wants me to send him a card. And imminent retirement. I have reread your Lazy Man's book a couple of times and really like it. Regarding vision, hearing, and dental, how good is the coverage, if any, in parts A and B of Medicare, or in the high deductible F and and the regular plan F supplement plans? There's not much mentioned in your book about these coverages. So I had to respond to Mr. Len. Medicare and Medicare supplements do not cover treatment for dental, vision, and hearing, except when needed to treat the consequences of injury or disease. Typically, those desiring coverage like this purchase that coverage from an insurance company as an extra policy. It's not an ideal situation for those who are counting their pennies, but as we all should know, there's really no such thing as free lunch. That coverage is just not included in Medicare, and it's not included in Medicare supplements. If you want dental, vision, or hearing insurance, you've got to buy a policy that covers that as a separate item. And then, of course, I went on to ask him to actually plead and beg that he write a short customer review of the book on Amazon, because I'm just reduced to begging for reviews. Amazon took away all the reviews on last year's book, kept them with last year's book. If you wanted to buy that, you would see that there are 58 reviews, very, very high percentage of 5-star reviews from readers. But the new book had to start from scratch. So I've got 2 5-star reviews as of this recording. So that's the mailbag for today.
Well, as you answered that letter, Doug, it just occurred to me, around dental insurance.
Yes.
If you have no teeth, you wouldn't be able to eat a free lunch anyway.
I disagree, sir, because you could gum it to death.
So now this you've hit on a topic that I've always wondered about. Why do insurance companies run the other direction from dental insurance?
Dental insurance is pricey because it's not really insurance. It is more like an indemnity. In other words, when you buy a dental insurance policy, they know you're going to use it. So they have to price it in such a way that they don't lose money. Other types of insurance are covering a risk that may or may not occur. But if you buy dental insurance, sure enough, you're going to wind up in the dentist chair a couple of times a year. You're probably going to have a couple of cavities that they're going to have to pay for. You may eventually need a couple of crowns that they're going to have to pay for. But if you buy health insurance and you never come down with cancer, if you're like my father, basically nothing ever happened to my father until at the age of 67, he dropped dead in the yard holding a rake in his hand. Now, there's a guy who had medical insurance his whole career, ever since he went to work after graduating from college. And none of the premium dollars that were spent on his behalf paid for any diseases that he ever needed to have treatment for. They went to pay for other people's expenses, plus profit for the insurance company so that it could stay in business. So dental insurance, they know it's going to be used and it's expensive, and not everybody is willing to pay that price. So insurance companies say, it'd be nice, but frankly, more people say no to purchasing dental insurance because the cost is kind of high.
So that answers. I never thought of it that way, Doug. That's a great answer, and now I understand. I still don't agree with it because insurance companies, that's the reason I call you the anti-insurance insurance guy, because I still believe that insurance companies, in a lot of ways, are constantly making bets that they can win, and when they know it's not slanted in their direction, they don't play.
I've got a good friend who is a banker. Here, I'm an insurance guy. So after college, I became an insurance guy, and that's all I've ever been. I've got a good friend who's the same thing, only in the banking industry. He rode the roller coaster of his career up and down through good times and bad times, and he was a highly placed officer in a bank owned by a well-known family in Illinois that eventually crashed and burned because the assets of the bank were reclassified, and all of a sudden they didn't have enough capital. But then my friend had the opportunity to retire, but he said, I really want to keep working. I just don't want to drive into the city. I don't want to have to do a lot of the things I used to do. I don't want to wear a suit every day. So people came to him and said, look, we have formed a little partnership. We got a ton of money. We've decided that we want to start our own bank. Now, we don't know what we're doing, so we want to give our money to you. We want you to start our bank for us. And this guy started a whole bank. And this is probably 10 years ago, and it was just recently sold to a much, much larger financial institution for tons and tons of money. And all these guys walked away, having done very well with their investment. Well, during the course of their operation, they were constantly making bets by allowing people to borrow money from them that they were hoping would turn out to their advantage. And when the bank won those bets, they had more money to lend out to other people who wanted to start businesses, build houses, build commercial buildings. So the fact that a company, an insurance company or a bank, is going to place a bet that they hope they win isn't a bad thing. If they priced it correctly, if they've estimated correctly, we hope they win those bets, because then they'll be able to reach out and help more people in the future. That's my personal opinion. I am not anti-business when it comes to an insurance company placing bets that they hope they win.
Well, speaking of bets, one of the bets that you and I are making is, as soon as our audience begins to roll and our audience begins to grow, they're going to pass the information around about how great this podcast is, because, Doug, you sure brought your A game today. We probably ought to wrap this up today before we get too far down the pike. Do you have any final words in terms of thoughts to leave before we go on?
Well, Randy got me started with the subject matter today, so I think we're going to address it more in depth in a future episode about the difference between Medicare supplements and Medicare Advantage plans. Because as I said, as I warned, actually, I have very specific opinions. And when you start to hear that steam come out of my ears, you'll know I'm talking about Medicare Advantage plans. So that's something to look forward to, is me losing my temper and maybe throwing some things against the wall.
Well, that's exactly what we come to listen to you for, Doug. So ultimately, thank you everyone for listening to the podcast. I was going to say this morning, we are recording in the morning, but you may be listening at some other time during the day. But thank you for coming and listening and spending your time with us. I'm going to sign off now for the anti-insurance guy, Doug Jones. I'll turn it back to him for one final word.
Go to Amazon, buy my book, Medicare for the Lazy Man 2020, and hopefully we'll see you back here at the next episode. Bye-bye.